How you use type on your website can subtly or not so subtly influence the flavor and impression of your website. As I reviewed in the previous movie, there are two varieties of type that you can display on your web page: HTML-based text or image-based text, also referred to as bitmapped text. Let's talk a little bit about fonts and the differences between a font and a typeface. A typeface is a family of text characters that may include many sizes, weights, and styles. Each version of the typeface, such as the boldface or italic version or the 24-point version, within a typeface family is referred to as a font. So I have a variety of typefaces displayed on this slide: Comic Sans, Tahoma, Helvetica, Arial, Times Roman, and so on. Each of these is a font. I have Georgia, a Georgia font here. That's probably a 26-point bold. Times New Roman is probably also 26-point. If I wanted to use italicized lettering here, I would need a different font in this typeface. Now, the font you choose for your site can have a significant impact on the experience of your visitors. Depending on the font or fonts chosen, a web page can have a clean, modern look, a classy look, a whimsical look, or a corporate look. As a general rule, fonts from only one or two typeface families should be used on any one web page. Employing too many fonts will confuse readers and create an uncoordinated and cluttered screen design. Your fonts need to be selected carefully. It's best to use one of the standard system fonts, since any special fonts will require installation on the client computer or require you to bitmap that font by creating it in Photoshop and then making a graphic and inserting the graphic into your web page. Standard resident fonts come pre-installed on Macintosh or Windows computers. If your web page requires a font that's not available, it will be replaced by one that is available, often with disappointing results. Let me now introduce the font family property. This is a list of font family names and or generic family names for an element specified in priority order. You'll use the font family property to specify the fonts to be used for a specific element. This is, notice, a list of typefaces with then some font declarations down below. The way this works is that the computer of the user will look for the Georgia typeface, the 12-pixel font type of that typeface, and if it finds it, will render that element in Georgia. If Georgia is not available, the computer will look for Times New Roman. If Times New Roman is not available, nor Times is available, it'll render the text using the generic family serif. This is a name of a generic family: serif, sans serif, cursive, fantasy, or monospace, or other generic families. So any kind of serif font that it finds, it'll render that text in that typeface using the font size 12. So there are two types of font family values: the family name, like Times, Georgia, or Arial, or a generic family name, like serif or sans serif. One of the most annoying problems web designers face is the limited choice of fonts available. This is due to the fact that the only fonts that can be specified safely in your designs are the ones that are installed on most computers that are out there that are used to view web pages. Practically every personal computer has a set of fonts installed. These fonts are usually put there by the computer manufacturer or are the default font sets for the operating system that the computer is using. Different computers can have very different sets of fonts installed. The most casual computer users never know the difference. For example, just because you have Icicle italicized installed on your computer doesn't mean everyone else does. If you specify this very specialized font in your style sheet and use it on your website, it will be rendered correctly on your computer, but very few other users will have such an obscure font installed and available to their browser, so they won't see it. Instead, it'll be replaced by a more generic typeface such as Courier or Tahoma or Arial. So the rule is, the more obscure the font you specify, the more likely it is that you'll run into trouble with it. In the case of the Icicle italicized, you'd probably need to go into Photoshop and bitmap the text and then insert that text as an image in your web page. So the bottom line is, for web designers, it's important to think about browser-safe fonts. These are fonts that are typical and available on most browsers and in most computer systems. Browser-safe fonts will be the topic of the next movie. These are very few, and you can see the list here I have in this slide, but they can be used with confidence as most of your visitors will have them installed on their systems.